Welcome to Leaders of Today. I'm your host, Lorraine Connell. Today, I'm joined by someone who has spent her career helping others step into their full potential. Winnie da Silva. As an executive coach, leadership strategist, and team builder with more than 25 years of experience, Winnie works with leaders and organizations to navigate transformational change. Through executive coaching, leadership development programs, and team building strategies, she helps people lead with intention, clarity, and courage. Winnie's leadership journey started long before her professional titles. As a teen, she wasn't the typical leader, but she was always the one cheering others on, offering advice, and boldly forging her own path. That same spirit of encouragement and innovation now fuels her work with clients across industries. She's also the host of the podcast Transformative Leadership Conversations, on which I was a guest, so check that one out, where she dives into what it really takes to lead well today. I'm so excited to have Winnie with us to share her story, her insight, and the lessons she's learned about leading with purpose. So let's dive in. You're listening to Today's Leaders, from teens to titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. Welcome, Winnie. I am so honored to have you with me today.
Oh, thank you, Lorraine. It's so nice to be on the other side of the mic, as they say, but thank you for having me on your show.
Of course. All right. So as I start with all of my guests, I asked you to go back in time and I ask you to sort of reflect on who you were as a teen and tell us a little bit about that experience, what you learned at that age, and how that has transformed you into the coach of really giant leaders out there and being the leader you are today.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've been reflecting on this since you asked me these questions before, and I've been preparing for our conversation. And one of the things that I think has stood out to me is things that just come up that don't go my way. Like I want something to happen and it doesn't happen that way, but then something else kind of opens up. But I think it really taught me to kind of be resilient against disappointment. So like a couple of weird examples. So I was definitely a theater kid and I was probably a better actor than I was a singer, but I did both. But throughout my teen years, there were things that I tried to do that I didn't win. Like in Once Upon a Mattress, I wanted to have the lead role because, of course, the lead role is Winifred, which is my name. And I'm like, of course, it should be me. When you're like 16 and you're thinking, well, they're just going to give me the part because I can like sing and dance sort of and act. And it's Winifred. I didn't get it. And I was really sad. Now, my best friend and I, Linda Algram, now Spore, we actually ended up getting the same part and shared it, which sounds weird, but it was actually super fun. So I went through it, but this is so funny because I remember my mom. So I came home and I was devastated and I didn't get it. I was really sad. And the next day she put a note in my lunch and it was a yellow star that she drew. And she said, "You are my star."
Oh,
And I don't know, it just made me feel better. And it's like, again, maybe jumping to the parents who are listening right now, even if I don't know how I responded or if even like acknowledged it to my mom, I hope I did, but I might not have. But when you think about teenagers, and I guess technically I only have one right now, but I've had others and I really do have another teenager. What you say to your kids really matters. You know what I mean? And it makes a difference. So that's one example. The other example is that I tried out for the special advanced chorus. I didn't get it, didn't make it. But Mr. V, who was like a little bit of a monster, but like also I learned a lot from him. Instead of getting that, he actually made me the MC of the
Mm.
entire production, which played to my strengths. So like I actually talked and emceed and organized and like talked through the whole thing, but I didn't get to sing, but I got to do that. So again, perseverance, try out. Maybe I'm not going to be great, but I still got another part. And then one other quick story, again, related to theater, is at 16, again, mom comes into the equation here. And me and my same friend Linda were upstairs in my room doing nothing during the summer break. It was probably the beginning of summer break. And she's like, Winnie, I found this is how old I am, but I found this advertisement in the newspaper about this really cool job that you can try out for, where it's basically you try out for this thing called show wagon. And what happens is you put on 4 different shows out of the back of a wagon, and that wagon travels to different libraries around the neighborhood. And it's like a summer performance for the kids at the library. And I was like, okay, I'll try out. So Linda and I tried out. I didn't get it. But I must have been second on the list because somebody who got it dropped out. And I got a phone call right before we were going to go on vacation with my family saying that I got it because someone dropped out. So do you want to join? And I was like, yes. And then I proceeded to do that for the next like 4 summers. And it was the most fun, the best thing ever. And it was great. So anyway, I guess all I'm saying is that looking back on the Winnie that I was was wanting to do things and I didn't get it. And so then I tried again or something else happened and it kind of ended up working out.
I love so much of those stories. It reminded me of the moment in my own high school journey where I was cut my freshman year from the softball team and totally devastated.
Right.
And so I guess my question for you is, did you recognize those opportunities at the time? Or do you feel like now, because you're so much older and you can like look back, do you feel like that as a teenager you were able to do that? Or do you think that's an adult behavior? And so so that's part one of the question, because I want to know, do you think that's something that we can build into supporting our teens?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is a really good question. I feel like because the turnaround was pretty quick, that it felt like it was a good learning experience because it felt like you may not get what you want, but there might be something else. Or just because you didn't get it doesn't mean that you're not good at other things, kind of, But because those things were immediate, I feel like that helped. It's those long-term lessons that you don't really see immediately that are harder to learn early on. But I think because at least with those examples, yeah.
Where do you think we can build that in for teenagers?
So one of the things, and of course, when you're asking me these questions, I'm thinking of like my kids. So I've got 3 kids, 21, almost 18 and 12. So my whole thing when I think about trying to be a good parent is that helping kids try things and do things, even if it feels like they might not be good at it, because you don't know until you try. It's like, you don't know if that dress is going to look good on you unless you try it on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you really need to try things. And I feel like I could be better about encouraging my kids to try new things. But I think there's that. I think that also when it comes to trying things, I think it is about experimentation. And this is for adults too. It's like, if you just sit and think about something that you want to do, but you don't try it, or you don't see if it works, if you like it, if it's something that you're good at, if it's something that you're not good at, but you still like, and so you want to get better at. So I think that that's what I think about. I'll tell this to the executives that I coach. It's like, we get a lot of times caught up in what we think we're good at versus what we enjoy. And I kind of don't think it matters what we're good at. Think about what you like, and you don't know if you like it until you try it. And to get good at it doesn't mean you have to be good at it right away.
I love that so much. And I think, again, like it harkens me back to, I also have a 17 and a 14-year-old. So my 17-year-old is like at that point where so many of the teens that I work with, I want to get before, but like they're at this point in their lives where like, I need to know what happens next. You have these 12 years of school school that it's clear. This is what's next. You go to 7th grade, you go to 8th grade. But like when you graduate high school, the paths are so amazing and opportunistic, but also they feel narrow and they feel open. And so there's all of this experimentation that I don't think we prepare them for. So I think your comment of trying new things, trying something that you love to do versus the things that you're good at.
Yeah.
At these ages, it's priceless.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is sort of wearing a parenting hat, but like when I think about myself as a parent, I also think that I have to check myself to make sure I'm not limiting my kid.
Yes.
And I know that like I have done that and do that too.
Yes.
Like, of course, they're not going to like that. Or I can see early on, they're not that good at that. Maybe we'll try something else. And so I just think that in some ways, even though I'm saying that, like, I don't think I've always been good at that as a parent, even.
Right. And I think, as you said, that last segment, I think so often I've stepped in to prevent them from continuing down a path where I'm like, oh, they're not going to be good at that. Whereas if I had just let them experience it, maybe they weren't good at it, but they loved it. And so it's like we think we're doing such good things for our kids, and really we are limiting them because, as you said, our own perceptions. And
it's unconscious, I think, sometimes, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, I'll give you a quick example. So my youngest daughter, I won't go into the whole story, but she was in an ice skating accident and part of her left pinky is self-amputated. And this happened to her in 4th grade. And before that, we'd gone ice skating here or there, but like I hadn't been like, oh, let's do ice skating and like get you going. And I live in New York City and people tend to like get their kids involved in sports and stuff like when they're 3. But anyway, so she was in this ice skating accident in 4th grade. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I really want to make sure she gets back on the ice so that there's not like a block, like the fear or I'm afraid or whatever. But I was just sort of thinking, we'll go like when she's better. Anyway, so a month after this happened, she said to me, Mommy, I want to go ice skating. And I was like, sure, yeah, we'll definitely go ice skating again. And she's like, no, like now. And I'm like, no, she was going to have another surgery. Like, I mean, no, it was not going to happen. But now that it healed and we got her back, she's almost to like skill 6. She wants to do synchronized skating. I mean, it's like now she's like loves ice skating. And who would have guessed having this major accident that this would have created a love of ice skating for her? Most parents wouldn't have even maybe allowed it.
Yeah.
Would have guessed it. Like that's
right.
Kind of an example.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. Can you tell me how you got to coaching? Because coaching is a relatively new title. Yeah. How did you graduate high school? What was your trajectory? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, sure. So I always wanted to help people. My mom was a social worker in Georgia before she had me. They lived in Georgia for a very short period of time. I was born in Ohio and then we were in Illinois. But just thinking about wanting to really help people and impact people's lives and help them become better was really always attractive to me. And I always read biographies or autobiographies about people doing those kinds of, I mean, just generally people like going through hardship and going through difficulties and challenges and that. And so social work, it seemed like something I'd be interested in. So I got my undergrad and a graduate degree in social work, but it really wasn't for me for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's very hard work. It's very emotionally difficult. And for all the social workers out there, you are amazing and you are doing amazing work because it is so hard. And it's funny because one of my best friends at the time, Tom, he made an observation when I was in graduate school. He's like, Winnie, it seems like you don't really like it because I would come home exhausted. I was like, yeah, I know. But I liked learning about it and I learned a lot. And so then I quickly pivoted. I did social work in New York City for a couple of years, was really burned out as a result, moved back to Illinois. And I just started doing informational interviews and just talking to people. I happened to talk to a recruiter because I thought maybe I'll be a recruiter. And she said, you know what? I have the perfect job for you. You should be a training coordinator. So I was a training coordinator at Arthur Andersen Business Consulting in their change management practice. And actually, quickly, I was like, I want to do this other thing. I want to do change management. I want to actually work with clients. Like, I don't want to be behind the scenes managing training. And they were like, well, but you need a master's degree in change management. I'm like thinking, I have a master's degree in social work. It's not that different.
Right.
So, making a very long story short, I basically convinced them, they hired me. And so I was at Arthur Andersen as a consultant and then a manager until Arthur Andersen died. And then when they died, I went to work for one of our clients as their head of learning and development for the US. And then I had a baby and she was 18 months old. And I was like, I'm traveling a ton, I'm working a ton. I need something else. I need flexibility. So I literally just jumped off the cliff and started my business. And that was 20 years ago this October.
That's incredible because I really do feel like coaching is such a newer experience. And I will tell you honestly, when I was making all the money at my full-time salaried position, I poo-pooed the need for a coach. And then I left making money and I was like, I need a coach right now and I don't have any money. So it's so interesting to me that when you can afford it,
Yeah.
you can use it. And when you can't afford it, you need it. And so it's just so interesting, the experience of coaching and how it just opens you up to see the things that you can't see about yourself, the potential, the environment. It just takes you from being, I think of being so in it.
Yes.
Being able to see all of it and get you to see all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's really the crux of it. Actually, you described it really well, which is that the best of coaching is about unveiling your blind spots, really understanding what your blind spots are. And then on some level, taking ownership of those, that they exist, that they're there. But then next comes wanting to do something about it and really being committed to growing in order to evolve and develop and change.
Yeah, I was wondering if some of those experiences that you described early on of like missing opportunities or not getting what you wanted, how do you use that to help you coach big leaders?
Well, so it's interesting. I think that going back a little bit, that really helped me. And maybe I had some of this already, but that really helped me be kind of tenacious. Because what happened is there's a lot of no's and there's a lot of like, you're not that great. But what happened is that it caused me to feel like, you know what, I can just do it. So I guess what I'm saying is when I started my own business, I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never started a business before. I was leveraging what I had done before. So I was like sort of advertising, like I can do leadership development programs, but I had never really been a coach. And honestly, I've never gotten my certificate in coaching. But what happened is that I built relationships. And even before that, from the very beginning, I thought about what title do I want to give myself? And I thought, you know what? I want to give myself the title that includes something about leadership. And I can't remember what the title I gave myself to begin with, but it was basically like leadership expert or something. And I kind of just made that up. You know what I mean? Like I was just kind of like, that's what I want to do. And so I get to give myself a title. So I'm going to give myself that title. Now, of course, it leveraged the work that I had been doing with executives, but coaching wasn't exactly what I was doing. And in fact, the way that it kind of came about that I actually started doing coaching is I was working for a client. I'm still in touch with her. And in fact, she worked for my old boss before I quit and then moved on to my own thing. And I was doing work with them. I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I was doing competency modeling. I was doing HR consulting. I was doing training. I was doing all this stuff. And I actually recommended a coach to her. And I said, hey, she was looking for, here's someone I know, blah, blah. And at one point she said to me, Winnie, can you just do the coaching? We just like working with you. That was it. She wasn't like, what are your credentials? How are you going to approach coaching? How are you going to? No, it's like, I know you already. You can do this other stuff. Can you do this too? That was it.
I'm curious about you giving yourself a title. As you said that, I thought so much. So one of the myths that I talk about and we talked about in our conversation on your podcast was that there is this myth that we have to have a title in order to be a leader.
Yeah.
And so I am so curious about what it might do and empowering of a teenager to say, yeah, you didn't get the lead in that role. You're going to do this other position or this other role.
Yeah.
What would you call yourself? And like, I know in theater, they have like supporting actor and actresses and stuff like that. But like, what if you were to empower yourself at that age to say, okay, give yourself a title?
Yeah.
And then do it. Like, step into what it is you want. And then if you don't like it, change your title. So I'm curious about sort of like offering that to some of the teens that I work with as
Yes.
an activity of practice.
Well, and I think what's really interesting about that is because what you're describing is it's something that you actually do. Like if you were working with a teenager, you could say, if you could create the title that you'd want to be, right? Or whatever. What's happening, it's not an external thing. You're doing internal work through that exercise, right? Because what you have to do is you have to think about, what do I want my title to be?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what that means is, who do I want to be?
Yes.
Right? And I think the key to working with kids, teenagers, etc., and my husband is much better at this, and he reminds me of this all the time, is we're in it for the long game. So don't freak out about any one thing. And how this relates to this is you're creating in teenagers to say, you're in it for the long game. It doesn't mean that you can't change outfits. You know what I'm saying? So like, back to the outfit thing, right? Like try something on. Think about what you'd want to wear, right? Think about the role you'd want to wear. Step into it. If it doesn't work, shift it, right?
Yeah.
Another example that might be helpful, and I think this is really useful for teens as well, is this. So when I shifted from being a social worker, working with literally crack kids in the Bronx, to working in boardrooms in Chicago and working with clients there. And by the way, I had an amazing mentor. So back to what you do, you know, peers, not fears, right? Huge difference. I felt like she plucked me out of nowhere. And her whole philosophy was, I'm going to take you with me to see the CEO, because what's going to happen in those meetings, you're going to need to know. So I got all this exposure early on, literally like 2 years out of being a social worker. And I'm now suddenly sitting with the CEO. Now, that could potentially freak someone out. Okay, like I don't feel comfortable. This is not me. What's happening? Okay, well, this is where I use, and I talk to my clients about this a lot. This is where I use theater, because I imagine myself stepping into the role of a consultant. It didn't have to be Winnie. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? So I created a role for myself to step into. I'm going to be a consultant. And I also did some visualization where I was imagining Winnie, the consultant, stepping into that boardroom. What was it like? Who was in the room? Where was I going to sit? What was it going to be like? What was it going to feel like? And so that was really helpful for me as I worked to build up my skills and confidence to be the consultant that I was going to become, but I wasn't that person right away. So I think for teenagers, that can be really helpful, is to kind of imagine yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to be that person right away.
Yeah, I love that a lot, because so many times I'm telling kids, I'm telling parents, it's like confidence is a skill that you develop. And we are spending a lot of time building the muscle of comparison, right? So we're on our phones, we're looking at other people, we are comparing other people and ourselves. And so that muscle is really strong.
Yeah.
And the muscle of confidence is pretty weak because we're not practicing it. We're not building that muscle. And I'm actually working with a teen right now who's like, I don't have friends. I'm not popular. And so the other day I asked him, I said, what does popular mean for you? Like, what is the person that you are imagining is popular? What does that look like for you? And so starting to get that child to think about, who is that person that I am imagining as popular, and just planting that seed first in himself. And then starting to say, well, when do you see those skills coming out for you? When do you see those behaviors for you? And I also am working with a teen who came to me for confidence, but in the conversations we had, I'm like, you are confident. What it feels and what it turns out is that it's belonging.
Yeah.
And so I think what you are saying and suggesting is like, put the outfit on and be that, whether you are that or not, be it and see how it feels.
So I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said, because I think they're really important. I mean, One is the popular kid that you're working with. I mean, the question that I would be curious about too is what is it about being popular that's attractive to you? Right.
Yeah.
But that leads to the second in terms of the confident teen that you're working with, because I think what you were trying to do and what you are doing with those teens is really understanding kind of what the quote unquote problem is. Because
Mhm.
so many times, and this happens with executives, like we
Yes.
jump right to what we think the problem is when that's actually not the problem. And the worst thing that Lorraine, you and I could do as coaches is to grab onto what they're telling us the problem is right away and just trying to find a solution for that
Yeah.
rather than being like, huh, I'm not sure if that is the problem. Or maybe you wouldn't say that, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
let's make
Yes.
sure that we know what either the problem is or what you actually really want so that that's super clear. And then we work to kind of get you where you want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and isn't that a skill that as parents we wish we had at the very beginning, right?
I
Like,
know. And even as a coach, I mean, you're good with that with your
yeah,
clients, but not necessarily with your kids. That's a totally
yeah,
different thing, which is why you do what
super.
you do. Right?
Exactly, exactly. I practice on my own kids first.
Yeah, right. As best you can, right? But it's easier with other kids, I'm sure.
It's so much easier, for sure. So, what advice would you give to the teenager or the parents of those teenagers who identify as Winnie, who is really out there and trying to do amazing things and sometimes gets slapped back? Maybe you
Yeah.
wouldn't have said it was like of rejection, but because you had these opportunities that came out of those rejections and it didn't feel as bad, but like the kid who wants to do this and then doesn't get it, like what is the
Yeah.
advice that you would give to them?
Well, I'll start with the parents and I'll say it again, long game, right?
Yeah.
So really calm down. And I'm saying this to you because I'm saying it to myself, like calm down. You know what I mean? Like we're playing the long game here, right? So don't freak out that your kid hasn't found the thing that they love to do. Because by the way, I kind of also reflect even on my own life and even when I think about my kids, like their thing that they're good at, maybe it's not even something that's available for them to do as a teenager. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's so
Yeah,
many things that like,
it hasn't been created yet, or it
yeah,
hasn't been
or
discovered
you're not
in their
old enough.
world.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly that. Exactly. Or you're just not old enough to do it yet, kind of. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that's important to remember. It's not like whatever you do as a teenager in terms of like where you're successful is totally definitive. And in fact, going back to playing the long game, your not successes, your failures or your attempts
Yes.
to not do everything you'd want, that's where the growth happens. And again, I kind of feel like a lot of times, again, as parents, we're so focused on our kids being happy. And
Mhm.
I kind of don't like that as being the goal. I don't think that's a good goal for our kids. Our goal is to develop really good human beings who have
Yeah.
integrity and good values. And the way you learn, really the only way that all of us learn is through difficulty and challenges. That's how we learn. All the
Right.
other stuff,
Right.
it's like, well, that was easy because I'm naturally really good at whatever. And it's like, you didn't grow from that. You didn't. And so
Right.
I think that's a big part of it is like actually being there as a parent when your kid is failing to love them and to support them and help. And I don't mean teach as in like a wagging your finger kind of thing, but like really helping them see the long game, even in the midst of
Yes.
failure. You know what I'm saying? So that would be for the parents. I mean, I think for the kids and for the teens is maybe they can do more than they think. And I don't know what you have found in coaching teens, which means you're coaching parents, because I know when I coach executives, I'm coaching their bosses. So that's
Yeah.
just how it is. But, you know, I think that we really, and I know I do this too, I underestimate my kids all the time in
Hmm.
terms of their own internal resilience, in terms of their own internal, I don't know what the word is, but like radar in terms of what it is that they're good at or what it is that they like. Like we don't know our kids as much as maybe we wish we did. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's hard to hear, but it's like we kind of have to trust our kids a little bit in a way.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I don't know if that totally answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think it really does. And you brought us back to the word that you said very early on in the interview is that those things that happened to you taught you resilience. It
Yeah.
created the opportunities for you to, again, that's a muscle that we build. You were building the muscle of resiliency. And it's exciting that bad experiences or negative experiences that we might perceive as teenagers or the parents of teenagers is actually helping us grow and be stronger in other areas. And so that, I guess, is my final piece of advice, is like, remember that even through the bad, you are creating new muscles, new opportunities. And that's what I learned from listening to you, is that I forgot about some of those times where like it just felt like I had been hurt so bad that I couldn't come back from it. But we all do come back. And it's who's in our court, who's there, leaving you that star. And if you have the opportunity to reach out to your mom, please tell her that it came up and you're like, I didn't realize how powerful that was, but it came back. So
that's right. I will.
I think there's often a teacher that we look back on, and it's been 30 years since we've had that teacher. And so we don't reach back and say, hey, you really changed my life. And that's part of my mission, is like, it's never too late to tell the people that they had an impact on your life. And so
100%. And can I add like one kind of practical thing as it relates to that, the whole resiliency thing, is that I think there's two things that parents can do to help their kids process difficult challenges and times. I mean, one is just, it seems obvious, but really fully listening. And that can just mean just being there with them. And like, instead of trying to fix it, you're literally just listening and repeating back what you've heard. Like I try this and it's hard for me to do because you want to fix it. So that's one. After you've done a lot of that, the next thing that you could do, if they're ready for it, is this whole idea of reframing. Like, is there another way we could see what happened to you differently? And before you just throw a bunch of things at them in terms of how you think they should reframe it, maybe you can get them to kind of, even if it sounds ludicrous, but even if it's ridiculous, like throw out 10 things how you could see it differently. So you're not looking for one thing. You're like literally 10 things and see what happens.
Yeah, the reframe is such a powerful, again, muscle to build. And really, I think the sooner we can start asking those questions, like, could you see that differently? Could that have felt different for somebody else? I mean, that's empathy, right? So that can start at any age, 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds and up, just asking like, what did that feel like for you? What do you think the other person felt like? Why did that happen? That curiosity and that muscle is something that we as parents have to build. And so start when they're young. So you're building muscles at the same time.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, no, it's definitely like those stories that you tell yourself about like yourself or about how things are, how other people are. That's another critical component, is really kind of uncovering some of that. And I'm sure you do that in your coaching with teens and parents, is really helping to understand what those are so that you can shift some of those narratives.
Yeah. The people in our heads telling us stories, they're so mean.
I know. And they have
It's me. It's always me.
I know. They do. They're powerful.
They're loud. Yeah. So, we can listen to them, or we can choose to reframe and recreate the story. So Winnie, where are people going to find you? Where, again, let's share your podcast and all the places that we can find you.
Sure. Yeah. Transformative Leadership Conversations, where I interview people like you, leaders and experts on different leadership themes. So there's that. You can find me at www.winniedasilva.com. That's my website. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Substack. And I'm launching my YouTube channel starting this month. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.